Hi, welcome back to episode 2 of my vlog, as a dear friend told me is what it's called. I had never heard that term, but apparently this is called a vlog. So I'm glad you're back, and today I want to talk a little bit about my process and how I start out in the studio and how that all plays out in a day. First of all, I think it's really important to talk about process as opposed to product. We are all so intent when we enter into a creative process to be concerned about the end product. And what I do in my book is really try to shift that focus from the product to the process. The process itself is actually so important, probably more so than the final product that you end up with. That's just kind of a payoff for it. But if you're a human, then you're creative, and you need to be on a creative process to be a whole person. That's part of the way we experience what it is to be human, and it can create these beautiful places in us that otherwise wouldn't be tapped into. During a creative process, we come in contact with who we are, who God is, who our world is, who the people that we love are. It informs a lot of our lives living on this planet. And so we've all been wired to create, whether you're, something traditionally that we call an artist, like visual art, drama, dance, performance, those kinds of things that we all think of as creative applications. I'm talking about whatever it means to expend creative energy. That could be organizing a closet. I think that the creative process creates beauty out of chaos. What was once chaotic has order and beauty, substance to it, because you've expended some creative energy toward it. So if you use that definition, then that means as you're organizing closets and preparing meals, you're being a creative person. So one thing I try to do in my book is shift that thinking. On page 22 of my book, I write, "We must be assured that if God alone values our work and creative process, that we have the freedom to continue in it." So what if your paintings don't hit the galleries? What if your song sits on your computer for ages and it never goes anywhere else? What if? So what? You've done it. I have a great example of that. Okay, so about when I paint, I'm a visual artist. I work in oils. I work pretty big. As you can see behind me, this is what I'm working on now. It's a portrait of my daughter who just graduated from high school. 2 years ago, I had my oldest daughter go through a similar process. Once she graduated from high school, I decided to paint her portrait. She was in her prom dress, and it was such a healing process for me to be on. Let me show it to you. So this is the painting that emerged. This is my oldest daughter, Rachel. I don't know, can you see that? It's a really big painting. I'm not gonna hold it up all the way, but you can kind of see here, let's see. See? Ooh, that's about all I can do. It's 4 foot by 4 foot, so it's really big. But it allowed me to go on this process of grieving her, and celebrating. But the first layer on this painting was like blood red, and you can't really see any of it, only what depth it gives to the rest of the painting. But the very first layer, I felt angry because I put 18 years of my life into this child, and I wasn't ready to let go yet. But I knew, and you have little letting go moments from the time they're born. I mean, really, birthing a child is very much like letting go. You know, that's your first letting go. And so there are these little letting go moments over the course of their lives, but this felt like a big letting go. Like she was going to move out of my house. She was going to launch. And that felt painful. So I had to sort of grieve that. I had to walk through her moments as a baby, as a toddler, as a child, as a teenager. These moments in her life, and walk through those and grieve so that I could get to a place where I was excited for her and for her future. So that first layer was like thick red paint. And the first probably 3 or 4 times I walked up to this panel, I was kind of a mess, a basket case. I was crying and I was slapping paint. And then as I began to paint her figure and imagine her future and her life forward, I began to be able to like grab joy and hope for her, knowing that this was what we were all waiting for. This was the moment that we were working toward. But I had to, it felt like a loss too, so I had to grieve that, and this painting really helped. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And I find myself in the same spot again with my second child who just graduated. She turned 18 in May. She graduated from college. I'm sorry, she graduated from high school. Whoa, back up. And I've got another month with her before she moves on campus. So I'm feeling this sadness again. And so I decided to have the same process with her that I did with my oldest daughter. And it's so helpful. It's a very different process this time. Like, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't look the same. I didn't start out with red, crimson, feeling like it was bloody, not anything like that. It was a little bit lighter this time, and I don't know if it's because I've done it before and so it doesn't feel as heavy. Our relationship is different as well. So, but I feel a sadness. She doesn't always know what she gets with me. I'm in the process of letting go and grieving. It could come out at any time. Probably last week sometime, she was getting ready to go, and I just grabbed her and hugged her and just started weeping. She said, "Mom, you've got like 2 months, like, get off," you know. But every once in a while it'll just come out, and I'll just feel like, because I'm processing it through a painting, so it's always sort of right in front of me. But this is so helpful. It's a helpful process for me. And I get to kind of experience my children and kind of process who they are. For Rachel, you know, she's sitting in the middle of a phlox garden. She's serene. That's kind of who she is. Ellie's in front of a waterfall. And I think that's so fitting for her, because she's always had this rich and deep well. She's always had an inner strength. There's a lot of things happening in her inner world, and we don't always get to see a lot of that. But I'm so aware of this rich well that's within her. And so it feels really right that she's sitting in front of a waterfall. So for this portrait, I'm really wanting to take her and put some of her back into the waterfall. That's the foreground, right? The foreground is Ellie, which is my daughter. That's the figure. She's in the foreground. The waterfall is the background. But I want to somehow bring the foreground and the background together, because they interplay with one another. I feel like the cascading waterfall is a way it's so much of who she is. There's so much depth and movement happening within her. So somehow I want to bring that forward into her figure. But this is all kind of unfolding as I go. Those are kind of the thoughts on the front end. What happens during my process, I could go a completely different direction. Right now I've laid down some paint. I've kind of put a couple layers of waterfall. I sketched her figure in. So today here's my palette. If you're a visual artist, my dear friend who's on Instagram, if you're out there, Sissavon, which she follows me and I follow her, so there's a very good chance that you could be out here. This is my painting palette. She was my painting professor at school, and this is the first one I ever made. It's the one I use. It's my favorite one. It's like however old, and the back of it is a piece of cardboard. And my daughter Bree, my youngest, drew this or painted a picture on some cardboard, and I used that cardboard for the backing of my palette. But this palette has been around for as long as I've been a painter, and it's my favorite, and I love it. So I'm going to start mixing my colors, and the next thing I'm going to do is, if you can see her figure, she's been drawn in, and I'm going to lay down the first local layer of color. Local color meaning it's just the main color that you see when you look at her. Her hair is brown, her face is flesh colored, her shirt is black and white. I'm going to lay those colors in. Then, once that layer dries, I'll come back in and add details and shadows and highlights and different colors, because her hair isn't just brown. There's orange and blue and purple, yellow. There's all kinds of colors in her hair. But it's essentially brown. So I'll lay the local color, which is brown, and that will be my first layer on the figure.